As air travel rebounds, so has unruly behavior aboard planes. That includes an incident on Southwest, which resulted in a flight attendant losing 2 teeth this last weekend. Earlier this week, the Homeland Security Secretary issued a warning to passengers who don't behave.
We're not going to tolerate behavior that threatens the well-being of the public, the employees that bravely are on the front lines to facilitate the travel for individuals who want to reunite with friends and family.
Joining us now is Sara Nelson. She's international president of the Association of Flight Attendants. And Sara, it's good to see you this morning. Thanks for being with us to talk about this. I was pretty stunned reading the initial coverage of what happened on that Southwest flight and then seeing some of the video that's been out on Twitter. This does not look like a provoked situation. The passenger had said she was doing this in self-defense, but swinging and hitting hard, punching the flight attendants multiple times until someone else got involved and tried to settle things down. I mean, this is kind of nuts. What are you seeing right now in the air?
It's complete nuts, and it's a constant combative attitude. And this is just something we've never seen before in aviation to this level. Already in the first 5 months of this year, we have more than 20 times the numbers of unruly passenger events that we would have in a full year. And it's got to stop. And so it's no coincidence that the Secretary is speaking out like that. We have been asking for that. We've been asking for clear leadership from the government, from our airlines, from everyone to understand what the rules are, what the consequences are if you act out. And really, this is also a product of air travel not yet being rationalized, not yet being back to what it was. We're at about 60% demand of what we were prior to COVID. We don't have business travelers back. We don't have international travel back. And this is an environment that we just have never seen before, and we can't wait for it to be over.
What does the lower demand have to do with these incredible scenes that we're watching play out? Are you suggesting that airlines are not as strict with things because they're not able to, because they're afraid of scaring more passengers off? What are you talking about?
No, actually, and thank you for that, Becky, because I want to clear that up. We don't have as many airplanes in the air as we used to. We've got 60% of the travel demand. It's really more about the fact that we don't have people on the planes who are used to flying, who know the program when you fly. Typically, what flight attendants will do is when we see a conflict arise on the plane, we're trained to de-escalate. We look for our helpers. It's very difficult when you don't have people on the plane who are regularly flying, who sort of know the program, who are typical people that we would go to help at least create peer pressure, but also help to try to calm down these incidents. And so it's just a different environment with these full planes and people ready to get out, and also being told that everything that we are doing to try to keep people safe in this public health emergency is a political issue rather than a public health necessity. They've been set up to believe that this is a combative space, and most of these issues are over mask compliance.
Wow. What's the solution? I know that in some cases the flight attendants union has asked for additional air marshals to be on board. What other measures could be taken? What do you think would actually de-escalate the situation in the planes?
Well, look, a lot of times these events are exacerbated by alcohol. So we have been asking the government and the airlines to make sure that we're not selling alcohol right now, because that's only adding to the problem that is very clearly out of control. And we also would like to see more airplanes getting back up in the air and giving us a little space to deal with this. You know, people didn't necessarily like sitting right next to another person on a plane before we started giving each other a 6-foot berth. But here we are on the other side of coronavirus. People are ready to, or not quite on the other side. We're not through the pandemic yet. We continue to need to have all these safety precautions in place to keep everyone safe. And people sometimes, when they're jammed into a close space with all this pent-up tension, and then being told that we're at odds with each other, they're coming with a combative attitude rather than just the desire to have a safe, uneventful flight. I do really want to be very clear, though. You know, we always remember and recognize the outliers and the bad incidents. And it's still the vast majority of people who really do want to come to the door of the airplane and have a safe flight. I'll say that, you know, this new phenomenon in air is also a threat to our jobs. Because if people start to think that this is the new norm for air travel, why would you want to do it? So we really have to get this under control because we need to keep people safe, but also because we've got to get back to a place where air travel was before this pandemic started.
Yeah, I mean, I think about it, and when I've watched it and seen some of these things recently, it reminds you of road rage that's happened. I don't know if it's society, and part of this has taken this idea that you can be less civil with people. I don't know how we get back to civility, how we get back to a point where you treat people how you want to be treated. What have the airlines themselves done or said in terms of when you've asked for additional flights to be put in the air, or when it comes down to just the idea of not selling alcohol? That's got to be a bit of an issue when these airline companies are also trying to make money, or at least stop losing as much money.
Yeah, alcohol sales are not huge right now. That they just need to stop, and they're starting to add the service back on board. And it's got to stop until we get this under control. I think that we really need some government intervention here on that particular issue, and maybe on some other modified food and beverage service issues, so that we can not be adding to the problem. But I also really want to thank our airlines, and I want to thank the federal government. FAA Administrator Steve Dixon has been spending every single day on this issue. The FAA has been very clear about the fines that they have been issuing and the fact that you can face jail time. I was on an event with FAA and TSA this week. We have that zero tolerance policy extended through September 13th. And I appreciate you reporting on this. I mean, we've got to get the word out that there are real consequences if you're going to act out on a plane. And you're going to be facing a federal penalty and fines. And so typically when we communicate these consequences, that does help to deter people from acting out like this. But we've got to get the message across and help people understand this is not acceptable. And the airlines really have to work with us on all of the things that we're asking for to try to calm this down and not be doing anything that's adding to it.
Sara, and I don't know if this would improve the situation or not, but when you get on an airplane, oftentimes the flight attendant, not often, always the flight attendants welcome people over the loudspeaker, often, and go through the safety procedures and all of the measures. Should they be explicitly saying what the fines are, what's illegal, nothing will be tolerated? Does that make the experience better? Does that provoke violence? Does it make it worse? I don't know the answer, but there's part of me that thinks that if it wouldn't be a great experience to hear, but if it was said at the beginning of every single flight, it might change the dynamic, no?
Andrew, you are correct that we need to have more messaging, constant messaging, but it's really important to have that throughout the airport. So you've got PSAs running over the loudspeakers or on the screens at the gates, announcements being made at the gates. It's very helpful when the flight deck will make those announcements, an announcement from the captain with that kind of message. And giving this message everywhere and having it saturated throughout the travel experience is really very helpful. So you're onto something there, and you're also onto the fact that it's very helpful when flight attendants are not necessarily the ones to be communicating the rules, but in a stern way, but to be able to give instruction to people in the cabin and to be able to use all of our skills and all of our different tactics to de-escalate. So we would really like to see that on the front end, saturated throughout the entire travel experience. When people check in, get their ticket, buy their ticket, an acknowledgement of these things, messaging in the gate jetways as they are boarding the plane. The more messaging that we can have around this, the better.
Okay. Sara, thank you. Always good to see you. Appreciate it. Have a great long weekend. It's going to be busy in the skies this weekend. I'm sure about that.
It's going to be busy. I'm going to be on call.
It's going to be very, very, very busy. When we come back on the other side